Moms Without Time podcast. It's all too much and not enough at the same time.
Hello, and welcome to Moms Without Time podcast, a show where two moms share their own experiences, thoughts, ideas, and tips on all things being a mom. We are back and ready for our new episode. We're excited to be back, and we're excited for this episode today. We are talking about. Are we going to go straight into it?
We can talk about how we've been. I mean, it's all been about the same. I'm a little exhausted from my newly lifestyle change. It's just temporary, but I'm took some time off from work, and this staying at home biz is no joke, okay, y'all.
I'm excited for you though.
Your children, I don't know about all this.
Yeah, when you told me you're having some time off, I'm like, yes, I am so excited for you to be fully stay-at-home mom mode. Personally, I love it, and we'll talk about that in the future, but stay-at-home mom is where I want to be at. I don't want to work, and I love being home. So I'm excited for you to fully experience it without all the craziness of working from home too.
I like it so far. I mean, only day one done, but I mean, yeah, I'm tired. I'm ready to go to sleep. I'm ready for bedtime. I mean, not that I do obviously other stuff while I'm working from home and being a mom, but this one it took a lot of more attention to detail today because I was like, I'm gonna be fully present with my child. Whereas I realized that when I'm working from home, I'm not doing that. So that was kind of hard. It takes practice to be fully present with your child.
Yeah.
100% of the day and not necessarily pushing them off to do something else.
Yeah. I think I still need practice with that.
But I'm excited to talk about what are we talking about today?
So Monica, about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, had Millie in Montessori school. And I remember when before kids, I would drive by the Montessori schools and I'm like, man, that looks so cool. I would love to send my kids there. So Monica's gonna give a little bit more of the insight of Montessori because she not only did the Montessori school actual schooling, but she does Montessori at home. And so I'm just gonna share what I think Montessori is just from being a very lax follower of what it is. I do think some of it comes naturally to parents because I remember when Maya was first born or younger, a year old, year and a half years old. A lot of the things that I implemented in my home, I later realized were Montessori-ish ways, which is pretty cool. Um, but I never sent her to school for Montessori or anything like that. But basically what I think it is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is a way to be open and letting your child lead, explore, learning through more exploration, more on what they're interested in. It seems like a very open-ended way to play. It's not very structured or rigid. Um an example that I would give is when Maya was little, I had my shelves for her with open-ended toys. And that's a hallmark to me, very Montessori-ish, right? Even though you're the professional, Monica, so you're gonna have to talk about that a little bit more.
But yeah, no, you're right. I think you pretty much hit it on, I think, on the nail about Montessori and or what it kind of consists of. Like Montessori itself is supposed to actually it's supposed to go into an educational setting, but people are popularizing it into a home. So I think when you're thinking about Montessori, people are kind of thinking about what it looks like in their home and not necessarily what it was or what it's supposed to look like in an educational setting, because that's where it really came about. It's supposed to be this education philosophy where you teach your child to be more independent, to be more of a critical thinker about everyday stuff and not just to be a person who's just checking off boxes all day and knows how to read along a certain song or a story. It's about kind of going with the child's interests, letting the child lead, and then also teaching them the principles. There are certain principles in Montessori that you kind of focus on, and going with those principles as the child progresses in their life. So there's going to be like a certain age group that they're in within that period of time, and then those are going to be some within that period of time, those are going to be some like principal key factors that you want to really focus in, so that the kid is also like, okay, yeah, they are freely choosing what they want to do and learn and play, but within these like principles that we're going to focus on here. So yeah, Montessori is really nice. And I remember when Millie was like 6 weeks, the reason that I found Montessori was because I was, for some really odd reason, I don't know, didn't want to put her in a crib. Like it was just this like really weird thought. Like that's not where I wanted to like do like the transition from like co-sleeping to putting her into her own room. And then I realized that people were doing this thing where they would transition into like where they do
Floor bed.
sleeping in, yeah, those floor beds. And I was like, okay, this is weird, but I'm gonna like look into it, and it's super normal in like every other country in the world except America, here in the United States. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it. And Millie slept on a floor bed from 4 months and up, and so she did great. And this was great for us because then it also gave us an opportunity to continue to bond. I made it easier to like leave and come into the room, and it made it easy for her to explore her room. And it kind of led me into Montessori, where I realized that everything should be at this like child level, like really leading the child into our home, making that like child another part of like uh, of the environment where they're living at, and not just oh, they're just a baby, you know what I mean? Because like a lot of people treat them like that, like, oh, they're just an infant, and then all these other things in your home they're not allowed to touch because these are adult things. But what I realize is that in Montessori we're teaching the or treating the kid with respect, and so everything around them should be available for the kid so that they're able to explore those things. So if you don't want them to break something, then you may have to remove that first, like a period of time, so that so that the child has the opportunity to explore that environment. So that's kind of like what Montessori is like, simplified version. And then like the more like complex version is like the idea of like education and how it goes beyond like beyond the classroom, beyond your home, beyond toileting, outside in like society. So how do you treat them with respect, and how do you teach them how to respect others? All of that is probably what right? Without like these definitions, because that's probably what you were practicing the whole time.
Yeah, I think when you scratch the surface, it's more like when people think about Montessori that aren't like fully into it, it's more about like what you're seeing as far as opposed to like what it actually is philosophy wise, because the philosophy and like the way you're looking at the kids in the world is not just what you're seeing. There's a whole like different aspect, and the reason why the way things in Montessori are a certain way goes beyond like, oh, it's a floor bed, or oh, it's an open shelf. Like it's more than that.
Yeah, so I think like you said, it from outside looking in, it's just something very beautiful to look at. Montessori, its biggest appeal is its organization. There is structure. I wouldn't say there is rigidity. There is a lot of loose ends to Montessori because, again, it's a child led center. It's not going to be some adult saying this is how it needs to go, but there is structure. But it's so beautiful, right? Like you go into a Montessori, like if you've ever like toured a Montessori school or daycare, you go and it looks so beautiful. Like you want your house to look like that because of the shelves and how clean, and
Yeah.
how one little toy is placed in one shelf, and you're like, I can fit a whole box of toys in there.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a purpose for that. And then you kind of get into exactly that, the philosophy of why the one toy is more purposeful than the 10 toys you can fit into a box. And the reason that I got into Montessori is because I realized that when a kid is like, when you take all of the distraction of 10 toys that your kid could have, and I understand that could be privilege, or you wanting to give your kid that much affection and giving them the privilege to have 10 toys, but if you take all of that away and just give them the one toy, they can do so much more with that. and learn so much more with that one toy than they would with 10, because then they become distracted. They become overstimulated. And when I realized that there was magic into even knowing that, and I tested it out and saw it, I was like, okay, I'm like hooked. I want to know more. So there's
Yeah, I learned that the hard way because with Maya, and I'll share some pictures of like her play area when she was, crawling and walking. Is overstimulating. The amount of toys that these kids could collect, and it's not just like me as a parent giving her all these things. It's the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the birthdays, the Christmas, everything. They start collecting all these toys, and it's like, one, you feel bad to like get rid of it because somebody gave them from their heart, gave them to you. But so then they just either stay there, or they, like what Maya was doing is she was just using it to bulldoze. Like she would get a bin, pour it out, and that was it. Like, she really wasn't purposefully playing with the toys the way they were meant to be played. And some, I'm not saying like not all the toys weren't good, but she wasn't, because of how much it was, because of how overstimulating and all the sounds and everything. I had to be like, okay, we're about to purge because you are not doing anything with these toys. You are not learning from these toys right now. So I think she was about like a year and a half to 2 years. It was a little bit before Juliet came that I was like, we're cleaning out house. And when we did that, she really started to like learn more and play better and play independently better. And that was like a huge thing.
Yeah. And like you said, you just using a really great example about a child like dumping a basket full of toys and like not purposely playing with those toys. But what she was like, what I would say is that she was purposely using the toy exactly what you'd intended, because the activity there is
She's
to have
dumping.
poured, yeah, to have poured those toys out, because that's actually an activity in Montessori. Like you
Yeah.
put a whole bunch of things like knickknacks in a basket, and their intended play is for them to pour it out and put it back in, pour it out and put it back in. And some people actually see Montessori as like this really harsh parenting style, because they're like, this is torture. Like you're just torturing your kid. Like why a ball in a hole, and that's all they do all day? But this is like teaching them concentration.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Millie's 3 and she can listen to me read for 45 minutes a chapter book.
Hmm.
And I think that has to do with because she knew to put a ball in a hole multiple times.
Yeah.
Because she knew how to dump a basket, with all these random little knickknacks and do it and do it and over again. I think all of that has to do with endurance, like endurance in the brain, and being able to do it for so long. Maybe for us, it was boredom. Like we were bored seeing our children do that, but now she can sit down and tolerate something that to us, for somebody else who's like looking in, they're like, that looks boring. A 3-year-old is reading, all she's hearing is words, but she's really excited listening to the story for 45 minutes. And I
Hmm.
think that's what it's called. It's like concentration.
Yeah.
And I think Maya was doing it already without you knowing. I mean, you
No,
were,
but the toys that she was doing it with was like a ridiculous. It was like baskets and baskets of toys just everywhere. Like you couldn't even step. That is where it's like, no,
yeah.
this isn't good, And so I like, yeah, that kind of stuff. Like now that I went through that. Like Macy has a little shelf. She has like one little, like four little shelves, and she has like her toys there that are Montessori, quote unquote Montessori. But how do you feel about like, so whenever you start seeing things about Montessori, it's like some people call it, I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase, the sad beige room.
I got that a lot from people, from my family members, my friends, and that's fine, because I understand the purpose of why they desensitize some of the coloring and certain toys at the beginning of their early stages in infancy, and why some toys then have colors in the primary room. So again, the reason I have to emphasize this is because this philosophy was more for created for the education like room,
Not in the home.
schools, not in the home. In the
Mm,
home, it is okay for your toys to look realistic. Like the balls can have a color. It's okay for the teddy bears to do this or whatever. Like, yes, you're right. Like people do tend to like buy into the idea that Montessori should be all wooden stuff, which is how the more realistic Montessori rooms in education look like as well, right? Because they want to mimic as much as possible, but it doesn't have to be that way. What
Yeah.
you what, what you really want to do is stay focused on the fact of what that lesson is teaching your kid,
Mhm.
not necessarily like the color. But I did kind of like buy into that too. I was just like, man, it has to be wooden this, the wooden rattle, the very beige blue. I don't know,
The
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 pale,
youth tones.
yeah, the neutral, and then the shelves are really beautiful, and I still kind of, I mean, my preference is if I can try to keep it that way, I want to keep it that way. It matches my home decor. But at the end of the day, especially now when they're 3 years old, they're not gonna pick that. Millie loves pink, pink and blue. The two colors that I hate the most are her favorite
Yeah.
colors. So
Yeah, once they get their personalities, like, they're gonna pick whatever color that they want. So might as well just do what you want it to be.
and I think again the focus is just what that specific activity is gonna do for your kid. Like, what is lesson are you trying to teach your kid? If the ball is black or the ball is red, it doesn't matter. Certain activities do have a specific like color for, again, that kind of is moving into more like when your kid is about like a two and up, their colors are a specific reason, or their specific reason for this one lesson. But for everything else, it's just usually just because the room needs to be as less stimulating as possible, and they also need to be enticing enough to just catch the attention just a little bit. You know what I mean? Like if the toy was all wooden except the ball was red, then the kid would be like, "Oh, a red ball." But if the whole toy was red, you know what I mean? What would be so enticing to go to that toy, right? If the whole toy was red and not even the ball would be able to be seen in the toy. That's kind of the idea. It's like what makes the toy like um interesting for the kid. And I've noticed that in Millie now that she's 3, sometimes I set up things for her and I have to go back to look at it and see like what makes me interested in this. And if nothing stands out for me, then I have to go back and rework it because I know nothing's gonna make her interested in it either.
Yeah. So would you say, since you're saying like the Montessori like philosophy and all of that was started, or is a academic, more educational theory, would you say that people should still apply that in the house?
Yeah, yeah, and I got so much support from like when once Millie got into Montessori, like the Montessori school, I got a lot of support through them, like the guides that she had. They had parent like classrooms where I could learn how to like take a more home approach to Montessori. So, what really works for your home and what really doesn't work for your home in Montessori. Like one thing that I'm gonna say, if you're trying to seek out Montessori at your home is like don't go in buying all these like Montessori, related materials. Like that is going to be such a waste of money. Um, unless you're starting your own school, because especially if you only have one child, like I did that, at the beginning, I was like, oh, I'm going to buy, the ball drop and I'm going to buy this and then I'm going to buy that. And then, I'm kind of going all the way into that and then realizing, well, she only used that for this amount of
Time
time.
frame. Yeah.
That's she's never going to use that. And actually when you mentioned Montessori is very open ended, it is open ended to a certain extent, but Montessori is actually very close. What is it called? Like
It's
it's
because
very
it's developmentally like age appropriate, right?
yes, it's like very age appropriate. So really it's open ended to a certain extent. So they're not, yes, you can use that toy different ways to a certain extent. They're not going to use that for the rest of their lives like they
Yeah.
would other toys that could maybe adapt to their age group or to
Yeah.
other age groups. So that's kind of what becomes really hard to like, to kind of feed into this. So like I wouldn't recommend people buying Montessori toys. They can make Montessori toys with lesser materials like boxes, paper. They can I know they can rent materials, or they could buy materials or like on Facebook Market, but it's also not necessary. You could really just use plastic toys. Like literally anything that you own could be a Montessori toy. It
Yeah.
You just have to kind of have more creative ways to how to implement that in your home.
Both of us got Love Every for
Yeah.
our kids. And I honestly, I really liked Love Every, but
Uh-huh.
you can straight up tell how tailored it is to their age and their developmental stages, because once they're out of that stage, they're not playing with that toy again. Like they're uninterested. It's too simple for them. It's not stimulating their brain. Like Jonathan, my husband, would be like, "Why do you get that? Like they're not even playing with it anymore." And I'm like,
He's like, "Ah, Monica."
these expensive toys, like they're not play but first of all, I had 3 kids, so you know what? They're gonna be used again because I did keep them all.
You made an investment because you have so many kids, they're gonna be used 3 times, but
No, and you know what? I also let friends borrow them.
okay.
So, I was like, "My kids are not using them right now, they're being put up." If I have friends with kids that are younger, I was like, "You guys can borrow it until my next kid is ready for it." So, there was a little exchange going on, that I really I love that my friends' kids were using them too, so
And you can do that, that's great, and, with me, honestly, Love Every, they have their resale value, okay? Like, they hold up well, people will buy them basically the same price you bought them for,
yeah,
and so I can't really complain, like, I got my money's worth. But yeah, no, if I had to do it again, like if I had to do it again, there would be other companies that I would probably invest in that would be maybe they wouldn't be tailored exactly how Love Every did it just because they did it so well.
yeah,
I mean, it was the
right,
ball drop that I was looking for because this website said they needed a ball drop,
yeah,
right? But and I would invest instead of a ball drop, I would invest in different maybe I would invest in different like learning about the principles of what all this stands for and doing maybe doing more like a co-op with Millie or maybe doing like
yeah,
because Montessori is more about socialization, community, like how do they deal with people their age around about at this age, like that's the stuff that I should have kind of more invested on, and instead of doing like these toy things, whatever, they could, she doesn't have to be doing this specific activity to be like successful in
yeah.
Montessori. And that's what I was kind of at that moment and trying to like, I guess in conflict try to grasp. But now looking back, I'm like, I wouldn't do it the same.
And I think that's because people focus on what they can see, right? Like
Right.
what I was saying earlier, like people really, when they think about Montessori, they're visualizing something instead of like the conceptual things that are applied to it, you know? But since Millie was in Montessori school, how was that experience? Would you do it again? How did all of that go?
Yes, I mean I would. Montessori is expensive. I
Mhm.
mean, people have like if people have it, if they can do it, if they can provide that for their children, I say it is an awesome privilege to give to their children that type of education because I do think the kids thrive in such an amazing environment. I saw it in Millie. Millie was so happy. She had an amazing guide, like an amazing guide. Like I am so grateful for the person that she was paired with as her educator. She was amazing to me, teaching me all these things. I feel like I came home after at the end of that like journey and like understanding everything and was able to be like, oh, more confident to do it at home. And I was like, okay, I know what I'm gonna do next. I'm not gonna put her back in school, but I can kind of pick up from where she left off.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I would do it again if I had to do it again. And if honestly, I think Millie's gonna be going back to Montessori because that's what I would prefer, the type of education. I think she thrives in it. But it does cost a lot of money, and I think that's the disadvantage. And I think that's what I hate about it. It's like, why
Yeah.
does it have to be so, for like the privilege, because
Oh,
it
I
was
know.
created for that. It really wasn't. I've after all of this like reading and history that I've been like searching up, it's supposed to be for like the disadvantaged, so it's like why is it so that only certain people have access to that? It's just
Yeah,
kind
because
of
I remember being in my 20s and thinking like my kid's gonna go to one of those schools because those look amazing. I've heard good things about them, like they're, all these things. And then once I had the babies, and especially once I had two, I was like, there's no way. Like I cannot do Montessori school. So but I think that me not being, because I think your bio says like Montessori-ish. I'm like Montessori barely.
yeah.
Like I do like a lot of the concepts, and I do feel like I apply a lot of it here at my house. Probably more than I realized because obviously I haven't like deep dive researched into it. Um, and I do like the overall concept of it. I would have loved to have done something like that, but I do think that a lot of the preschools these days are taking kind of some of those concepts and applying it, even though they're not necessarily saying like this is a Montessori school. Because our preschool kind of was that's the same way too. They did have like some worksheets and stuff like that, which I don't think Montessori does a lot of worksheets, but they were very like you could see by the way the classrooms were set up that they're similar in some ways.
I
So
think there are people who really they're trying to decide if like should I go full on Montessori? Should I not? Do I want to play it in my house? I think the biggest thing that you can do for your kid is just research what Montessori like what is it what are their values? What are their principles? Because that's basically what you're instilling in your kid. Like it's basically another like it's another parenting philosophy to me, for someone who's, applying it to their home, not necessarily just at school. It's like in your home. It's just another parenting philosophy. So does it fit in a line with your parenting style? Does it fit in a line with your family's values? And if it does, and if this is something you really, really want to push on, it's really important for your kid to learn X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
Like sewing, cooking, cutting vegetables, are those things really important to you? Is it really important for your kid to be that independent this early on? Because independence is really big the moment that you like decide that Montessori is for them at that age, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So you're gonna be wanting to be like at school, teachers want you to be very hands off. You gotta be a hands off parent. Whether you're that at home or not, you're gonna have to practice that. So like you have to just kind of decide if that's something that you're gonna be committed to, or can you be kind of like in the middle and not just or maybe you just
me
find a place that's kind of like you. Yeah, yeah, like a place
middle
that's
for
like
sure.
has those like values still that are similar, but then they don't have such a what is that? Like I don't know, like they're not like here in this end of the spectrum. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I,
but
and I you know you're saying like it to me it feels like a little bit more I don't know, but, maybe more hands on, but like for example, I was been really looking forward to the girls because they're officially being homeschooled, and so another time I'll talk about how we're doing homeschooling the experience so far. But I've been looking forward to them officially being home because I'm like, I feel like things are gonna slow down for us. There's not gonna be this busyness, this craziness of like, let's go, go, go in the morning, rush, rush, rush. Now I feel a little bit more hands-on. And I know that like with Montessori, like you invite your kids into your environment. And before, like they were not as in my environment, like when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning, when I'm doing all these things, because I'm in such a rush. But now that they're home, I feel like I'm more like every time the girls want to help me cook, okay, come and help me cook. Come and help me. Like Maya's making her own eggs out. The independence is like getting more, but I feel like I'm more hands on.
yeah, and what I mean by hands off, I mean like the hard parts of like Maya's an independent person already. Like think about Juliet. Like Juliet may be going through something hard, and how do you assist her with the least amount of assistance? You know what I mean? How do you help her give give like some type of help without being so hands-on? That is what Montessori is. It's like, okay, the I don't know what the right words are. I know there's like specific quote for this in Montessori, but it's like when you're guiding your child and they have frustrations, you're not gonna say, well, let me show you or let me help you. Nope, you just stay quiet and you let them
Yeah,
experience the frustration because apparently in the Montessori philosophy, they're gonna learn through that frustration. They're gonna have to go through that threshold, and
yeah.
like that's hands off are, and it's hard.
Uh,
Actually, that was really hard at first. I'm like, I see Millie struggling through this, but according to them, I have to let it happen. You know,
does that feel natural to you?
it was never natural to me. I was like literally they said put your hands under your butt. Like, sit on your hands like this and like let it just happen. And I'm like, okay, I'm letting it happen.
Yeah.
Tears are just falling.
You
So
know,
that's off.
yeah, I did that with Maya a little bit more when she would have her tantrums when she was younger, maybe even younger than Juliet. I would just sit next to her and let her like calm down. I just this is what I'm talking about with Julia. Like this, there's a reason there's a middle child thing, and I feel so bad, but I'm trying my best because when you have one child, it's so easy to be like, I'm just gonna sit here and let you calm down. It's not that easy when you have 2 or 3, you know what I mean? And so I'm trying my best to, like, figure that out, and we're kinda getting off on a tangent here, but yeah, I feel a little bit more hands-on, and I think Montessori seems like a little bit, like, hands-on offish, right?
You have to be on, like you said, you have to make sure that you're always welcome. Hey, you guys, whereas versus like maybe a parent who's at home and doesn't practice Montessori, where like they're doing laundry, they're not going to invite their kids to do laundry because you want to do it efficiently.
Yeah,
Necessary, you're always gonna ask them, do you want to be part of this activity? Do you want to be part of this activity? You know what I mean? That everything that you do at home is an activity that an open exploration for them, like a time for them to learn how to do something, for them to be able to practice that independence, right?
yeah,
That's kind of the hands-on part. The hands-off part is you're gonna learn how to do it yourself.
yeah,
You know, how do you've modeled it, and Montessori is all about you modeling it once or twice, and then now you practice yourself. And if there's frustration, I hear you, I see you, just try again. So
yeah. I
that's
feel
what
like I'm saying that all day long these days with my baby. She's wants so much help, and I'm like, "You can do it. You can put your shock socks on." Like, oh my gosh, she needs a lot of love and support right now, so just pray for my baby.
oh my God. But I do love modern, and I do still practice, like I, even though Millie doesn't go to school, I still practice some of that stuff, even though I'm not like it's a very big mix, because now we're
Yeah.
doing homeschool, and we're have different goals now. So I
You
mean,
doing
yeah,
Montessori at homeschool?
it's what fits in your home at the time that it needs to fit in, and it's however it fits into your home. I think that's what Montessori, the true Montessori, is for me. And it doesn't have to be like the super duper, like, very true Montessori. Some people are very up here, and I'm like more like down here now.
So real quick, you said that you're putting her, or she's going back to Montessori type-ish school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What grade does that end? Like Montessori, you think kids, little kids, infants,
No,
kind
it go up to high school, so they can graduate at 12th grade out
mm,
of a Montessori high school. Yes. Yeah.
be interested in seeing a little bit more about that.
And in high schools, what I've seen, like this, just really quick, I've seen they're creating like apps, their own apps. They're doing business, like creating their own businesses. I have this like a mom friend whose daughter is only like in third grade, and she has her own little I create doll clothes business.
Oh,
In third grade, she has her own little website, so you can go and order, clothes for your dolls. So she's already like doing things like that. And she's only in third grade. I can't imagine what she'd be doing in high school. So yeah.
well, thank you for sharing more about your knowledge with Montessori. I know a lot of people like me have some misconceptions about it, or just like maybe want to know a little bit more. Is it the right thing for them? So it's awesome to know that Millie has gone through and is going through that, because I love seeing her like just flourish and be awesome.
I love it. And so, well, you guys, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you like this video, and please head to our Instagram at Moms Without Time so that you guys can engage with us. And see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Moms Without Time.
For more information, visit our website at momswithouttime.com and email us at connect@momswithouttime.com.